everything around me. Green, get the money, dollar bill, yo.
But I also want to remind you that what you guys are playing right now was our first cut at Dregs. So we made a whole bunch of decisions based on watching you guys play it, both on test and on live, and those changes haven't actually made it through the pipe yet. Like, it takes us a while to get things implemented, integrated, balanced to the degree we do that right now, and out for you guys to actually have a chance to try it. So the first round of changes will actually be coming after this next campaign.
And Todd, cool. Those are just also, for a minute, let's talk about, those are like numbers and tweak changes to the campaign. There's still a whole lot of infrastructure that the engineering side of the house is just adding.
Right, for
so
sure.
We got a huge update with the culling stuff that got added this time. There's part 2 to that coming without them even seeing part 1. There's a Unity upgrade in there. So there's still a whole bunch of just tech stuff that's going on behind the scenes with all of these also gameplay changes.
Forts are not going to be a home base. What replaces them as a home base?
Right, so, because our worlds are only, just from a mechanical standpoint, the fort was filling the purpose of a smaller footprint on the map, and we could have 30 of them, and it wouldn't really make our maps really huge, right? So we needed to keep a small footprint style home base, and we also recognized that the forts just, they have the palisade walls, so hitting them with siege equipment didn't look as good as hitting the big, beefier walls of the keep, so it just didn't have the same visual impact. So we just basically drew a line there and said, home bases behave this way, and outposts behave this way. And forts are now part of the outpost family, and the keeps, be it the mini keep or the medium keep, they are part of the base family. So they have also, the thing that I really like is we consolidated our behaviors with these. The bases have trees of life. The outposts don't have trees of life, right? So players should be very, it should be much easier to tell what kind of area you are in. Oh, there's a tree of life. This must be somebody's base, right? Or this must be intended for a base. There isn't one.
And then that was another thing that was weird, right? Was the forts used the circle capture mechanic, which is actually more that's more like the outpost. So again, forts were in this kind of weird in between spot. So we thought it'd be better to draw the line. So we actually have some screenshots of that. I don't know if we've shown them yet, but we can show you guys what the small keep looks like. Emily, if you can throw a few of those up, we can talk through them. So you'll notice the first thing is that the Great Hall is not there anymore, right? It uses the smaller version of the Great Hall, and instead of the larger keep has 2 wards that are built in and 2 that you can build that have to be destroyed to activate the tree. In this one, there are only the 2 that are built in. And one of them is built. They're both inside of that building there, that smaller keep structure. If you look at there's kind of this leg sticking out of the front of it. That's where one of them is located. The other one is actually in the top floor up there. So you actually have to go into that thing. And so there's the floor. You have to go in and actually climb the spiral staircase to get up to the top to access the other one. But there are multiple entrances into this thing, right? You can come in through the walls. You can come in through the first floor. You can come in through the second floor. So it's actually what we're hoping is it'll lead to different fights, right? That's part of the issue that we've got right now is we just don't have enough variety in our sieges, and variety is a lot about different combat spaces. So I'm excited to get this one in. I think it'll be really cool. I think it'll be a nice addition to the area. And then once we get this one in and test it, my hope is that we'll have time to go back and now create a number of other ones. So anyway, so that'll be cool to get in. Let's jump over now to the other side of the equation, which is now how our fort's going to work and what our fort's going to do. And the forts are now going to be a nightly thing, right? So the forts are going to be available every night, and we're going to actually have forts as a high risk, high reward way of getting additional building materials without having to do pig runs. So what I'm trying to do basically is set up everything on a risk reward spectrum, right? So if you are willing to go and participate in the PvP, which is the highest risk areas, you're going to get rewarded for that. If you want to take less risky approaches, like running pigs or even combining materials, you can do that, but it's going to take you a lot more time and a lot more effort. So I'm trying to set everything up on a nice risk-reward spectrum, because what I really want is everybody who, even if I just have a limited amount of time, I can only log in a couple nights a week for an hour just because I have other stuff, I can still get in and find meaningful PvP. And we actually have seen that quite a bit, right? Adding the event notifications when certain things spawn has now given us, and adding event notifications when somebody tames a pig, for example, it basically puts a beacon on you and says, hey, there's people over here. If you want fights, this is where you come to find them. So I'm going to continue to lean on that, and we're going to double down on that. So forts will continue to give you capture points because they're still like outposts, and they still use the stand in a circle. Once you do have them, they'll have these containers that will pop materials on an hourly basis, and then you can hold them until the next cycle. They'll go off on a daily cycle, whereas the keeps and the home bases only go off twice a week. And generally speaking, they go off on a set schedule where other ones are going off too, so that it makes it harder. You have to make a choice between, do I want to defend or do I want to go to attack? And then the other thing that we're doing is we are adjusting the spawn rates of some of these things so that the pigs will spawn more during siege times and less during off hours, so that the game just doesn't become a game of nightly pig runs, because we do want everything to be in the mix. We want people out in the world participating and meeting other people. But I do have to have activities in off hours for people to do, otherwise they just won't log in.
Yeah,
so
and
that's
I think
the balance we're trying to strike.
Right. So what you're seeing here is we're finally with the home base split and the forts now part of the outpost family, kind of most 98% of our ingredients are now going to be on the table. I think at that point we will have created everything, as well as the ability to fluctuate the rate of spawn of the pigs. So it's going to be a lot of tuning from this point outwards, right? So don't take our first whack at the numbers as set in stone. Obviously, we always take feedback, but now we're actually going to have to do a lot of tuning to figure out what are the appropriate amounts of these things to spawn based on time of day, how often is combat actually going on there, is 2 times a week home base sieging enough? Is it not enough? The hours on all of that stuff. Again, we're highly responsive to feedback here.
Yeah, so, I did see one question come through that was basically why would we invest in a fort if they're intended to change hands every day? And that's an excellent question. The answer is you're really not. We've reduced the forts now. They're not serving the purpose of the home base. So they have a very limited number of things that you can do to to build them up, right? They don't offer all the services that a home base offers. They have guards, they have the material spawners, and not a lot else, frankly. That was the point of them.
You're not going to be building crafting stations in a fort, for example, right? That's what the mini keep.
Right, exactly. So again, we're taking this thing that was serving 2 purposes and we're splitting it out and making 2 different things that can do a better job each individually of serving the purpose they need to serve, as opposed to blending them together and having it be kind of a mess.
Yeah. So they need to think of the fort more as an outpost.
There's a question about when they might see these. When will they be coming into the game?
Yeah, so that's a great question. This is in the next update. So the things that I'm talking about right now are coming in the next update. So we're trying to wrap up that update now in terms of the actual work being done. And then it goes into an integration and bug fixing phase. So it is, I would say, weeks away, a month away, something in that category. We're shooting for being on a cadence now of doing 5 to 6 weeks from start of one to actually getting it out in front of people. The other big piece that's coming is on the glory card. So that the purpose of the glory cards is to get people out in the world when they want to make forward progress, but there's nobody around for them to fight, right? So what we tried to do was add events and push these things to where they have a forced location so that I'm more likely to be able to go to that location and find fights if I'm looking for them. That definitely from the first ones we did on the test server, where we found the locations were too broad and there was no event notification, to the latest iteration that we did, which we actually forced an off cycle update to get this in. We added events in to inform you, hey, there's things happening over here, go do it. We did that with the pigs. We're going to now use that same system to do what I call relics. So the idea here is that we can have a card that says, like, sacrifice spider eyes to Malachi, and by doing that you're going to get points. We can occasionally spawn the spider queen, and when the spider queen spawns, she can basically have a mega eye, a spider relic, that is the equivalent of a large number of those points, say like 300 or something like that. We do an event when that happens, and we let everybody know where she spawned and when she spawns. So that's basically now such a large, tasty prize that I'm guaranteed if I go there, there's probably going to be conflict. The other thing is picking up that spider eye, that mega spider eye, or spider queen eye, is going to do a couple things to your character. It's going to turn off your ability to recall. It's going to turn off your ability to stealth. It's going to probably turn off your ability to mount. And it's going to put a big fat shader on you so that other people know you have it. And it drops on death. So what we've done basically now is created another type of activity that allows you to, again, do direct PvP engagement to basically avoid the need to have to go and do something that I don't want to do for an hour and hours on end. So I think this is a cool one. I've actually wanted to do this for quite some time. So we're going to try and get this in this next update as well. The other piece that this ties into is what I talked about earlier of the when do these things spawn. I want to adjust the spawn rates on those things so that they follow the same kind of bell curve that player population follows, so that spider queen is spawning at peak population. She's not spawning at like 4 a.m.
Hellish went off and normalized all of the min-maxes on weapons, right? We got rid of the range on weapons, for example. We flattened. There is no min-max roll anymore.
No, that's a big one. Yeah, that's actually, we decided that the weapon RNG wasn't really wasn't adding anything to the game. So instead, now the weapons just have a number, and it's also nice because we did this with armor in the past as well. Is it makes it very apparent, like this weapon is 48, that one's 42, the 48 is better. So I think that's going to go over well. Also, that's also coming in this version.
Right. What else was in there? I mean, he's been poring over the spreadsheets, looking at the deltas between the melee and the range damage. The range is going to come way down, just the raw damage that they do. So, and he found some hidden stuff in there that people actually hadn't found on live yet. So it's like, oh crap, they're not doing this yet. They just don't know about it. So he's taking care of those things before you guys find them as well.
Yeah, and I'm aware, I'm imminently aware that we needed to go back and take a look at things like Frostweaver in general, some of the AoEs and the crowd control and retaliate stuff. I know that we need to deal with it. It's on the list. We're just buried. We've got so much stuff we're trying to do, and not everything bubbles up.
Anything that you can share about performance updates, performance improvements coming in the next update?
There's two things, actually there's three that are coming in the next that I think could have significant impact. One is we're upgrading to the newer version of Unity, so we don't know what impact that will have. I hope that it's better. Number two is the distance-based culling that I already mentioned before. Number three is the occlusion-based culling that I mentioned at the beginning of the program. This is a program, I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, at the beginning of the Q&A. So those three things hopefully will help. I don't know. We'll see. What I've seen so far is that it depends from one person to the next. Their machine actually makes a big difference. Like just last week, Gordon got in and told me he saw a big frame rate jump. So I installed on my machine here at the house and I didn't see one. So I think a lot of it is machine dependent, but I'm hopeful that some of these changes will be just across the board increases. The other thing that we're taking a lot of look at is actually not client frame rate related. It is server performance related, and specifically network traffic network traffic, like how many messages are being passed, right? The more people you have conglomerating into the same range of interest, which is basically things that I need to know about in the game, every one of them that makes a move has to be broadcast to every other single one. So a person adding there, it's not just a linear curve of degradation of performance. It goes exponential. It's what they call an n-squared problem because it goes exponential. So we're taking a look at that now, and we're trying to solve that, because what we've seen is actually larger engagements on the server. The server has been fine processing it. Like, the server is actually in a really good spot right now, but the network traffic gets overwhelming. So what we've seen lately is people having mass disconnects, and it's just because the network traffic is overwhelming. They're trying to process too many messages, and eventually it causes them to just get disconnected. So that's the next on our list. It's just, you tackle one problem, you get it fixed, and then the next problem reveals itself, and you have to pay attention to that one next. So that's where we're at.
Okay, another question. The things you mentioned about working on class changes and major disciplines, is that planned for the next build, or will it be pre-beta? Can you give any insight on the timing?
So there's a constant. We have two people on the team besides Blair who do nothing all day, every day, but work on balance. So there are probably thousands of power changes that are coming in this next version. Is that the big balance pass? No. At some point, I would like us to go and literally class by class go through and decide, like, hey, is this power working? And if not, should we pull it? Should we change it? The smaller pieces of that, I know Blair and Hallish are working on right now. The larger one, I don't know. I think that we'll be doing it right up until launch, frankly.
It goes past launch, right? I mean, it's the first year of an MMO, when you finally have huge mass, is when you see a lot of the edge cases with classes break. You've seen this with every MMO, is that first year after they launch, they're still tweaking classes. And in fact, some companies make a habit of every 2 years, they hit the global reset button and they change classes completely. So we will constantly be changing them. And then we have our unique wrinkle with disciplines, right? We let you completely change the behaviors of classes in many ways by adding a major discipline. So we're always going to be tweaking them. And we always get great ideas. We're like, man, that'd be a great discipline. Sometimes you just got to kind of want to squeeze a couple of those in as well.